Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the source material you provide and, well, we unpack the most important nuggets. We want to give you that shortcut to being truly well-informed.
Exactly. And today's deep dive is based on a really interesting resource you shared.
Yeah, it's a specific list. Our source is this lexicon, right? A curated list of 40 advanced English words, C2 level stuff.
That's right. Comes complete with definitions, sample sentences, and crucially, those usage notes, which are super helpful.
Definitely. So forget just, glancing at a dictionary. Think of this as us exploring this specific list together. Our mission is pretty clear. Let's not just read these words. Let's really unpack them, understand their power, and figure out how you can integrate them into your own communication.
It's about getting the maximum value from this particular vocabulary list you sent over. And the source itself highlights something important.
Which is?
Well, these aren't just like obscure words for showing off. They're described as high utility, really valuable for situations needing precision, needing clarity. It's exactly academic writing, professional settings, or even just, getting complex ideas across with more nuance.
Okay, great. Let's dive straight in then. Let's get into this lexicon. We'll explore them, maybe group a few if it makes sense. But yeah, the goal is to cover each one from your source.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Kicking us off is ubiquitous. The source defines this pretty simply as present everywhere.
Right. And the sample sentence is a good one. Smartphones have become ubiquitous in modern society. Really paints the picture.
It does. And the usage note, use when describing something widespread, it just feels, well, much more precise than common, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not just common. It's like everywhere you look in that context, it feels inescapable.
Right.
That's that C2 level kicking in. Ubiquitous suggests it's integrated into the fabric of daily life. Using it definitely elevates your description, makes it more formal, more about prevalence.
Okay, following that, we've got disparate definition. Fundamentally different.
And this sentence helps clarify. They come from disparate backgrounds, but work well together. Shows that contrast.
The note says, used to contrast unlike elements. So yeah, for big differences, right? Not just minor stuff, deep-seated unlikeness.
Precisely. Disparate implies they lack inherent connection. If you're analyzing ideas or groups that seem totally unrelated, disparate is the word. It sharpens your analysis way beyond just saying different.
Okay, next up, perfunctory. This means done with minimal effort.
Ah, yes, the classic sample sentence. She gave a perfunctory nod before walking away. You can just picture it.
Totally. And the usage note is quite telling. Useful in critiquing weak attempts or routine actions, perfect for something done just out of duty maybe, no real energy behind it.
Yeah, and what's insightful here is that perfunctory usually has a negative feel, right? It suggests a lack of care, maybe even sincerity.
So using it is a critique.
Often, yes. You're not just describing the action, you're commenting on the lackluster effort behind it. Think of perfunctory reports or perfunctory apologies. Yeah. Not very convincing.
Makes sense. Okay, moving to something about reducing problems. Mitigate. Your source defines it as to lessen the severity.
Sample sentence. The government took steps to mitigate the effects of the crisis. Very relevant.
And the note is practical. Use in formal or problem-solving contexts. Seems like the go-to formal word for softening a blow or reducing harm.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's key in policy discussions, risk management, environmental stuff. It's about actively intervening to make a bad situation less bad. Maybe not fixing it completely, but lessening the impact.
So knowing mitigate helps you discuss solutions with the right level of formality.
Exactly. And precision.
Okay, and what I find really evocative, insidious, your source calls it subtly harmful.
Ooh, yeah. The sample sentence really brings home that subtle danger. The disease has an insidious onset, making early diagnosis difficult. And the usage note concerns its power. Great for describing hidden threats. It implies the danger isn't obvious up front. It works its harm gradually, maybe secretly.
It adds such a layer of, quiet menace, doesn't it? Like something creeping up on you.
Exactly. Not just harmful, but subtly harmful. Think about insidious trends or insidious rumors, things that spread and cause damage without being overt or loud.
So using insidious tells your listener the threat is kind of sneaky.
Deceptive, yeah, creeping. That's the idea.
Okay, let's switch gears. How information gets around. Disseminate. This means to spread information.
The sample sentence provided is, scholars disseminate knowledge through publications. Very academic context there.
And the note points that out. Ideal in academic and media contexts, it feels a bit more formal than just share or spread, more deliberate.
It is more deliberate. Disseminate is crucial when you're talking about the flow of research or news or policy info. It highlights that active process of making information available, often with the intent to inform or influence a wider audience.
Got it. Okay, speaking of contrast again, next is juxtapose, defined as place side by side for contrast.
Sample sentence. The film juxtaposes beauty and brutality. Strong image. And the usage note specifies why you do it. Use an analysis or critique. So you're putting things together specifically to highlight their differences or maybe create some tension through that contrast.
So it's not just like putting two things next to each other randomly.
Right.
It's doing it to make a point about how different they are or the effect of them being close.
Right. It's an analytical move. When you juxtapose things, you're inviting the observer, the reader, the viewer to consider the relationship. Often the tension, maybe irony between them. Powerful and critical analysis.
Okay. Let's talk about difficult relationships now. Acrimonious, meaning bitter in tone.
The sample sentence captures it well. Their acrimonious debate ended the partnership. Ouch.
Yeah. The note is direct. Describes hostile relationships or conflicts. It sounds like it goes beyond just disagreement. It's harsh, right? Lasting bitterness.
Definitely. Think of arguments that leave that bad taste, that lasting resentment. An acrimonious divorce, acrimonious negotiations. The language itself is sharp, hostile, intended to wound.
Now, something people might do in those situations. Obfuscate. Defined as to make unclear.
Ah, yes. Sample sentence from the source. The company's jargon-laden report only obfuscated the facts. Happens all the time.
Right. The note says it's often used in critical or analytical writing. So it's the perfect word when someone's deliberately making something confusing, trying to hide the truth.
Exactly. It strongly implies intent to cloud the issue. Unlike something just being accidentally confusing, obfuscate suggests a deliberate effort to obscure clarity. Using the word lets you critique that tactic directly.
Okay, I see. And finally, for this first batch, impetuous. This means acting quickly without thought.
Sample sentence. His impetuous decision cost them the deal. A cautionary tale.
And the usage note is a clear warning. Use to critique hasty actions. Captures that sense of rushing into something without thinking about the consequences.
Yeah, it's more than just quick. It's quick and probably regrettable because there was no foresight. An impetuous remark. An impetuous purchase.
Acting on impulse.
Right. Acting on sudden urges or emotions rather than careful thought. The word itself highlights the potential downside.
Wow, okay, that's 10 words down already. And you can really hear how they add that extra layer of precision. Let's keep going, unpacking this list. How about we look at some words describing character or feelings next?
Good idea. Let's start with lament. Your source defines this as to mourn or express sorrow.
Sample sentence. She lamented the decline of traditional values. Quite reflective.
The note suggests use in reflective or emotional contexts. And yeah, it feels deeper than just being sad or regretting.
It implies a real heartfelt expression of grief or sorrow over something lost.
I think so. It conveys significant emotional depth and reflection.
Okay. For a more positive trait, how about magnanimous, meaning generous in spirit?
Sample sentence. Despite losing, he was magnanimous in defeat. That's real class.
It is. The note says, good for praise or character descriptions. It describes someone noble, forgiving, generous, especially towards maybe rivals or people less powerful.
Exactly. It's that grace under pressure, or grace in victory, or as the sentence says, defeat. It's a high form of generosity, overlooking slights, being kind. Calling someone magnanimous is pretty high praise.
Definitely. Now, a word that's almost beyond words. Ineffable, meaning too great to describe in words.
Sample sentence provided. They shared an ineffable sense of peace.
Beautiful. The note explains. Expresses profound or abstract feelings. So this is for experiences or feelings so big, so complex, language just fails.
That's exactly it. Like that feeling of awe, looking at the stars maybe, or a deep spiritual connection. You just can't quite capture it verbally.
Yeah.
Ineffable acknowledges the limits of language when faced with the sublime, the mystical, profound emotional states. It points to something that transcends words.
The ineffable to the very vocal, vociferous, defined as loud and forceful.
Sample sentence. The protesters were vociferous in their demands. You can hear it.
Right. The usage note for active, loud expression. So it's not just loud. It's loud with conviction, persistent.
Yes, exactly. It's about the energy and force behind the sound, not just the volume. A vociferous critic, a vociferous debate. Implies passion, insistence, often noisy expression of views.
Okay. And for someone who speaks wisely, sagacious, meaning wise or shrewd.
Sample sentence. Her sagacious advice helped us avoid disaster. We all need someone like that.
True. The note says, great for complimenting intelligence, but it feels like more than just smart, right? It's that thoughtful, experienced wisdom.
Yeah, it combines intelligence with experience and good judgment. Practical wisdom, sound judgment, keen perception. Especially in tricky situations. Describing someone as sagacious is definitely high praise for their insight.
Let's shift now maybe to words about time and change. Ephemeral, defined as lasting a very short time.
Sample sentence. Fame is often ephemeral. A classic example.
The note suggests useful in philosophical or poetic writing. It captures that fleeting, transient nature of things, doesn't it? Like a sunset, youth, a trend.
It does. It adds a touch of melancholy, maybe, or beauty. Highlighting how quickly something significant can just pass. It emphasizes brevity, impermanence, makes you reflect.
Now, describing someone who really doesn't want to change, recalcitrant. This means stubbornly resistant.
Sample sentence. The recalcitrant student refused to comply. Sounds familiar.
Huh, maybe. The note calls it a strong word for disobedience. It implies not just passive resistance, but like active, willful refusal.
Yeah, like digging your heels in. Deliberately defiant refusal to obey or cooperate. A recalcitrant negotiator, for instance, highlights that refusal to budge.
Okay, what about when you have mixed feelings? Ambivalent, meaning having mixed feelings.
Sample sentence. He was ambivalent about the promotion, pulled in two directions.
The note says, shows emotional or mental conflict. This seems crucial for describing that state where you feel conflicting things about something.
Right. It's not just being undecided. It's feeling both positive and negative or having conflicting desires. Unlike indifference, where you have no strong feelings, ambivalence means you do have strong feelings, but they clash.
Ah, key distinction. Got it. Now, for handling stress with grace, equanimity, defined as calmness under stress.
Sample sentence. She faced the challenges with equanimity. Admirable.
Very. The note suggests use in positive character description. Describes that mental calm, composure, evenness of temper, especially when things are tough.
It's a really valuable trait. Equanimity is about maintaining that balance, that control, when faced with adversity. Speaks to resilience, emotional stability.
And maybe on the flip side of that, obsequious, meaning overly submissive.
Sample sentence. His obsequious behavior annoyed his colleagues. Yeah, you can see why.
The note frames it as a critique. Useful in critiques of social behavior. Describes someone excessively eager to please to the point of being servile, fawning.
Exactly. Like trying way too hard to impress someone in authority, often insincerely. It implies a degrading level of humbleness or attentiveness. Not just polite, excessively deferential, often for personal gain. Carries a strong negative judgment.
Wow, okay, that's word number 20. We're halfway through this incredible list. We've hit traits, feelings, communication. Let's keep unpacking. What's next from your source? Let's look at words for actions, qualities, situations maybe.
Absolutely. Let's turn to another kind of stubbornness, maybe more about principles. Intransigent. This means unwilling to change.
Sample sentence. Their intransigent stance stalled negotiations. Sounds difficult.
The usage note points to its common home. Used in political or legal contexts. It's a powerful word for someone who refuses to compromise or shift from an extreme position.
Like intransigent ideologues or bargaining positions that won't budge.
Exactly. It suggests an immovable will, often rooted in deep beliefs or goals, making resolution really hard.
Okay. From immovable to extremely careful. Circumspect. Defined as cautious and careful.
Sample sentence. She was circumspect in choosing her words. Wise moves sometimes.
The note says, describes wise caution. So this is someone who thinks carefully about risks, consequences before acting or speaking.
Yes, literally looking around. That's the circumspect part. It's a positive kind of caution. Suggests prudence, careful consideration to avoid problems.
Got it. Now, for something you really like, penchant, meaning a strong liking.
Sample sentence from the source. He has a penchant for classical music. Nice.
The note suggests use for preferences or habits. It's like a settled inclination, right? A strong taste or fondness for something.
Yeah, it's a lovely, slightly elegant way to describe a particular affinity someone has. A penchant for fine wines, a penchant for adventure, adds a nice touch.
And speaking of things that aren't needed, superfluous. Defined as unnecessary or excessive.
Sample sentence. The report contains superfluous details. Cut the fluff.
The note says it's ideal in critiques or simplification. Perfect for pointing out stuff that's just extra, over and above what's needed, adding no value, maybe just cluttering things.
Exactly. Like extra words in a sentence, redundant features. It highlights redundancy or excess. Calling something superfluous means you think it serves no useful purpose. Might even detract from clarity.
Okay, let's get loud again. Cacophony. This means harsh mixture of sounds.
Sample sentence. The cacophony of traffic woke me up. Urgh. Horrible.
The note calls it a vivid descriptive word. Describes a harsh, discordant, unpleasant mix of noises.
Yeah, it's not just noisy. It's that jarring, chaotic, bad noise. A really strong sensory word. Think construction sites or badly tuned instruments all playing at once. Creates a sense of auditory chaos.
Right. From sound to stance. Bellicose. Defined as aggressive or like.
Sample sentence. His bellicose rhetoric raised tensions, often heard in politics.
Yeah, the note says, describes hostile individuals or nations. Used for people or groups eager to fight, aggressive, demonstrating hostility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Often used in political commentary. Describes that readiness or inclination towards conflict or aggression. Often in speech or attitude, maybe not active fighting just yet, but heading that way.
Okay. And for the perfect example of something, quintessential, meaning the perfect example.
Sample sentence. She's the quintessential professional. High praise indeed.
The note says, excellent for highlighting ideal cases. Describes something that's the most perfect or typical example of a quality or class.
Exactly. It embodies the very essence of something. Calling something quintessential implies it's the ultimate, purest representation of whatever quality you're talking about.
And how about someone who speaks like that quintessential professional? Eloquent. Defined as fluent and persuasive in speaking.
Sample sentence. His eloquent speech moved the audience. The power of words.
The note suggests use for public speaking praise. So this is beyond just speaking well. It's expressive, persuasive, maybe moving.
Yes, exactly. Language that's not only fluent, but also stirring, impactful. An eloquent writer, an eloquent speaker. It's high praise for communication skill that really captivates and convinces through its beauty and force.
Nice. Liking about awareness now. Cognizant, meaning aware and informed.
Sample sentence. We must be cognizant of the risks. Sounds like a call to responsibility.
Yeah, the note says, good in discussions on responsibility. It means having knowledge or awareness, but it feels like it implies you need to do something with that awareness.
I think so. It implies a conscious recognition and understanding, particularly of something that has implications you need to consider or act upon, not just passively knowing, but being actively mindful.
Okay, and lastly, for this section, vindicate. Defined as to clear of blame.
Sample sentence from the source. The new evidence vindicated the accused. Justice served.
The note points out, use in legal or justice contexts. Means clearing someone from accusation or suspicion, proving them right or justified.
Exactly. It's a powerful word for restoring a reputation or establishing the truth after doubt or attack. Demonstrating someone or something was correct all along.
Great. Okay, just 10 words left from this list you provided. We're nearing the end of this deep dive. Let's unpack these final terms.
Let's do it. Continuing this journey. Our next word, often used as a critique, I think, prosaic. This means dull, lacking imagination.
Sample sentence. The novel's prosaic style disappointed readers. Ouch. Yeah, sounds like a critique.
The usage note makes its function clear. Useful and artistic critiques. It's basically the opposite of poetic, exciting, or imaginative. Just ordinary, uninspired.
So when you use prosaic, you're hitting at that lack of creativity or flair. In writing, art, maybe even just life.
Pretty much, yeah. Critiquing a lack of excitement.
Okay. Now, someone who just won't learn their lesson. Incorrigible. Defined as incapable of being corrected.
Sample sentence. He's an incorrigible liar. Strong words.
Very. The note calls it a strong term for persistent bad habits. Describes a person or habit that's just beyond correction or reform. Sometimes used humorously, but can be serious.
Right, like someone who keeps making the same mistake or doing the same bad thing no matter what. An incorrigible optimist, maybe, or an incorrigible flirt. Highlights that deep-seated, unchangeable tendency.
Okay. For a more positive kind of persistence. Tenacious. Meaning persistent. Determined.
Sample sentence. Her tenacious effort led to success. Good for her.
The note calls it a positive word for dedication. Describes someone determined, persistent, holding firmly to a goal or belief despite hurdles.
Yes, that's that grit, that refusal to give up. A highly valued trait. Being tenacious is about clinging on to a goal, a belief, even literally holding on tight with stubborn resolve.
Got it. From determination to secrecy, Clandestine. Defined as secret or concealed.
Sample sentence, they held a clandestine meeting. Sounds intriguing.
Definitely. The note says, perfect for spy or political contexts. Describe something done secretly, often because it's maybe unauthorized, illicit, or just needs to be hidden strategically.
Yeah, adds that air of intrigue, maybe a little suspicion. Implies secrecy with a purpose, often for something sensitive. Clandestine operations, clandestine affairs.
Right. How about when you're just not sure about something? Dubious, meaning doubtful or questionable.
Sample sentence, the data is of dubious origin. Raises a red flag.
The note suggests, used to express skepticism. Describe something questionable, suspicious, uncertain truth or quality. Makes you doubt it.
Precisely. If you call something dubious, a dubious claim, a dubious character, you're signaling distrust. Suggests caution. Maybe needs more investigation.
Makes sense. Now, on the opposite side of praise, we have deride, defined as to mock or ridicule.
Sample sentence. Critics derided the film as predictable. Harsh.
Yeah, the note calls it negative commentary. It means expressing contempt by ridiculing or mocking.
Yes, it's strong. It implies mockery intended to hurt or belittle. Scornful criticism.
Okay. For describing, well, lots of things. Myriad, meaning a countless number.
Sample sentence. She faced a myriad of challenges. Sounds overwhelming.
The note suggests, use in poetic or elevated prose. Technically, it can mean 10,000, but usually in advanced use, it just means a huge indefinite number. Right?
Yeah, it's basically an elegant way to say lots and lot. Adds a touch of formality or a literary feel when describing a vast array, a myriad of stars, a myriad of possibilities.
Nice. When you're feeling nervous. Trepidation, defined as fear or anxiety.
Sample sentence. He entered the room with trepidation. You feel that hesitation.
The note says, great for dramatic tension, describes that feeling of fear or anxiety about what might happen, nervous anticipation.
Exactly. It's that specific feeling of hesitant fear before an event. Captures that unease mixed with anticipation, often before facing something unknown or challenging.
Okay. For acting with cheerful energy. Alacrity, meaning cheerful readiness.
Sample sentence. She accepted the offer with alacrity. Good attitude.
The note gives it a positive, energetic tone. Describes promptness and eager, cheerful readiness.
Yeah, so someone acting with alacrity isn't just fast, they're happily and eagerly fast. It implies that positive attitude combined with speed and willingness. It's a lovely word for enthusiastic action.
Great. And our final word from your list, describing when things get worse, exacerbate. This means to make worse.
Sample sentence. The delay only exacerbated the problem. Common scenario, unfortunately.
The note states, common informal discussions of crises. Seems like a key word for describing how one thing intensifies or worsens a bad situation.
It really is. It's the perfect verb for describing escalating issues. Crucial in analyzing cause and effect when discussing negative outcomes. Poor communication can exacerbate tensions. Lack of sleep exacerbates stress.
And there we have it. Wow. We've actually journeyed through all 40 of those advanced English words from the lexicon you provided.
Yeah, it's been quite the deep dive into vocabulary, really designed to enhance communication, add that precision, clarity, impact to your writing and speaking.
Absolutely. Our mission was to unpack these specific words, right? To get beyond just recognizing them, to really understanding how to use them effectively, giving you that shortcut to expressing yourself better, being more, well, articulate about complex ideas.
And integrating words like these into your active vocabulary just gives you more sophisticated tools, helps you navigate nuanced topics, communicate with, greater authority, maybe even grace.
So thinking about this whole exploration of precise, powerful language, here's a final thought for you to consider, based only on what we've discussed from your source. How might actively choosing and using more precise language, like these C2 words we've just unpacked, how might that not only change how you express your existing ideas, but maybe even subtly influence or refine how you actually think about complex topics in the first place? Something to mull over.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Oh.
Okay, get ready, because today we're really digging into something useful. A list of, I think it's 30 high-level vocabulary words.
That's right. Words carefully picked out.
Exactly. Think of them as essential tools. If you want to cut through complex stuff, understand advanced ideas faster, and just, communicate with real clarity.
Precision is key.
Totally. So our mission today, we're going to unpack these words one by one. Look at what they mean, sure, but also how they're used in the real world.
And why they matter.
Yes. Why getting a grip on this specific list is kind of a shortcut. Not just sounding smart, but actually being better informed, more articulate, whether you're reading research, policy stuff, or just, well, smart analysis.
Absolutely. It's definitely not just about the dictionary definition. These words, they're like the linguistic glue in serious discussions, academic, professional, even in-depth journalism.
Good way to put it.
When you see them, it's often a sign, a signal that there's a more nuanced point being made or something pretty significant. Understanding them just unlocks that deeper level. It helps you grasp the subtleties in almost any complex topic.
All right, then, let's dive in. Grab the first few tools from this vocabulary kit. We can start with some words that pop up when we're, tackling problems or challenges.
Sounds like a plan.
First up, alleviate. Okay, so this means to ease or lessen something, usually something negative, right?
Right. Reduce the bad stuff.
The source gives this example. Policies were introduced to alleviate urban poverty.
So it's really about reducing that burden, making a tough situation a bit less severe.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
You hear alleviate a lot when people talk about solutions, especially for big societal issues or health problems, suffering, things like that.
So practical steps.
Yeah, it implies taking action to make things better. Maybe not solving it completely, but reducing the negative impact. It's a very practical kind of word. Okay. And, sometimes even when we try to alleviate things, other stuff happens. Unintended consequences.
Oh, definitely.
Which brings us neatly to inadvertent. This means unintentional, accidental. The example was, his comment caused inadvertent offense. The key thing is that lack of intent. He didn't mean to.
Exactly. But the outcome is still real, isn't it? It highlights that even without meaning to cause offense or make a mistake, the consequences can still be significant.
Yeah, intention isn't magic.
Right. We talk about inadvertent consequences or inadvertent errors. It emphasizes that actions can ripple out in ways we didn't plan.
Okay. Speaking of things not quite lining up as planned, next is discrepancy. This is basically a difference, an inconsistency.
Something doesn't match.
Yeah, the example is super clear. There's a clear discrepancy between the two reports. It just flags that mismatch.
And spotting a discrepancy, that's often where the real work starts, in analysis or investigation.
Right, it's a clue.
Exactly. In data or different accounts or statements, a discrepancy signals something might be wrong. Maybe an error, maybe missing info, maybe even, someone not being straight.
So you need to dig deeper.
It tells you, pause. Figure out why there's a difference.
And those discrepancies, or maybe other actions, they can lead to repercussions.
Yes. Consequences.
Right. And the feeling is usually negative consequences. We heard the example. Environmental damage can have long-term repercussions. It's like the fallout, isn't it? The ripple effect.
That word really emphasizes the widespread effects, often long-lasting effects of some action or decision, especially when those effects are unwanted.
Things spreading out.
Yeah, think about the repercussions of a big policy change or maybe a natural disaster. They're not just the immediate results, but the effects that keep unfolding over time. They hit different parts of a system or a community.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got words for lessening problems, alleviate. Accidental issues, inadvertent. Things not matching, discrepancy, and the negative fallout, repercussion. A pretty useful set for talking about tough situations.
Definitely a good starting point.
All right, moving on. Let's look at some words maybe related more to managing risks or describing how ideas or systems work.
Okay.
How about mitigate? This means reducing the severity or impact of something. Often a risk, I think, the example sentence. Green technologies help mitigate climate change. Sounds a bit like alleviate, but maybe different, more proactive.
That's a really good distinction to make, yeah. Alleviate often deals with problems that are already here, right? Existing suffering or difficulty.
Like the poverty example.
Exactly, whereas mitigate is frequently more about reducing the risk or the potential impact of something harmful, something that could happen or maybe is already unfolding, but you want to lessen its future damage.
Ah, okay. Lessening the blow.
Precisely. That's why we talk about mitigation strategies. In disaster planning or risk management, environmental policy, it's the steps you take beforehand to make a potential bad event less damaging if or when it actually happens.
Got it. Now let's switch gears a bit. Talk about clarity or, the lack of it. Ambiguous.
Ooh, ambiguity can be tricky.
If something's ambiguous, it's unclear, right? Open to interpretation. The example was, the statement was too ambiguous to understand fully. Definitely not what you want when you need things to be precise.
No, absolutely not. I mean, sometimes language needs nuance, of course. But real ambiguity, That creates confusion because there isn't one clear meaning.
It could mean this or it could mean that.
Right. You definitely want to avoid ambiguity in things like instructions or legal contracts or scientific results. Clarity is crucial there.
But sometimes it's deliberate.
Well, yes. Sometimes ambiguity might be used intentionally, maybe in art or poetry to make you think, invite different readings, or even sometimes in negotiation, perhaps. But for clear communication, it's usually a problem, a hindrance.
Okay, let's go from describing clarity to describing fundamental ways of thinking or operating. Paradigm.
Paradigm, a weighty word.
It is. It means a typical example or model, a sort of core framework for something, the source used. The internet has shifted the business paradigm completely. That sounds huge.
It is huge. A paradigm is like the basic lens you look through when you view something, or the established model for how something works in a field.
So a paradigm shift.
Isn't just a small change or an update. It's a fundamental change in that lens or that model. The internet example is classic. It didn't just change how businesses sell things.
Right, it changed everything.
It changed the entire model of commerce, communication, how consumers behave. That's a paradigm shift, a fundamental rewiring.
And sometimes old ways of operating or maybe systems, they just keep going.
Yeah.
Even if they're not great.
Unfortunately, yes.
That's where perpetuate comes in. It means to keep something going, especially something negative. The example, these policies perpetuate economic inequality. It really suggests a cycle that's being kept alive.
Yes, perpetuate is a powerful word for that reason. It highlights how certain actions or structures or even beliefs can actively maintain or prolong conditions we don't want.
So the policy itself keeps the inequality going.
Exactly. When a policy perpetuates inequality, it means it's designed, maybe unintentionally, maybe not, in a way that continues or even worsens the gap.
Yeah.
It makes it harder to break that cycle. It forces you, as you said, to look at the underlying mechanisms keeping a problem going.
Okay. Last one for this section. Let's think about whether something is even possible to do. Feasible.
Ah, feasibility, practicality.
Means possible, achievable. The sample sentence. A transition to renewable energy is both feasible and necessary. It's like the reality check, isn't it? Can we actually do that?
Absolutely. Feasible is a word you hear constantly when people discuss plans, big projects, major changes. It's all about whether something can realistically be done successfully.
Considering the limitations.
Right. Resources, technology, political will, all those constraints. A feasibility study is a common first step before anyone commits serious resources to something big. It asks that basic question. Can we actually pull this off, and how?
Okay, great. I think we're hitting the halfway point soon. Let's keep building this vocabulary power.
Let's do it.
Next up, something that's absolutely essential. Integral. This means necessary, a core component. The example, technology is now an integral part of education. It's not just like an optional extra.
No, it's fundamental, baked in, as you said. Identifying what's integral helps you understand the core components of any system or idea or even a relationship.
Without it, the whole thing changes.
Right, or it just can't function properly. You know, trust is integral to a partnership. Critical thinking is integral to good research. Data is integral to empirical science. It's about what's absolutely essential for it to work or be what it is.
Okay, now for a word that sort of hints. Look deeper. Ostensibly.
Ooh, I like this one.
It means seemingly, but maybe not really. The example is quite revealing. He was ostensibly helping, but had another motive. It immediately makes you raise an eyebrow, doesn't it? Question the surface.
It absolutely does. Ostensibly is like a little flag waving. When someone describes an action or a reason as ostensibly being one thing, they are strongly suggesting that the real situation or the real motive might be different.
So be skeptical.
It encourages that, yes, a healthy dose of skepticism. It prompts you to look for what might be going on behind the scenes under the surface appearance.
Okay. From questioning motives to things actually breaking down, deteriorate.
Decline over time.
Exactly. To worsen over time, the example. Without investment, public infrastructure will deteriorate. It's a word for that slow downward slide. Negative change.
Deterioration is usually a process, isn't it? A decline in quality or condition or effectiveness. It's often gradual, and it's often linked to neglect, lack of care, lack of maintenance, or just negative conditions wearing things down.
And it applies to lots of things.
Oh, definitely. Physical things like infrastructure, but also environmental health, maybe even relationships or skills if you don't use them. It really highlights the cost of neglect over time.
Okay, so on the flip side of things falling apart, we have cohesive.
Holding together, unified.
Yes, unified, forming a whole that sticks together well. The example. A cohesive argument is vital for academic writing. It's about all the parts working together smoothly.
Right. And what makes something cohesive? Well, in a group, it might be shared goals, maybe mutual support. In writing, like the example.
The argument needs to flow.
Exactly. It's the logical connections, the smooth flow between the ideas that makes the whole thing easy to follow. Understandable as a single strong unit. A cohesive team or cohesive argument is usually much stronger, much more effective than one that's all fragmented.
Okay. And, back to making problems worse. Exacerbate.
To make something bad even badder.
Pretty much. To make a problem more severe. The example. Poor planning exacerbated the flooding issue. Definitely the opposite of what you want to achieve.
Yes, it's the direct opposite of alleviate or mitigate. Exacerbate describes actions or maybe external factors that intensify an already existing problem. They make it worse than it was.
Like throwing fuel on the fire.
Kinda, yeah. The flooding example is perfect. The flooding was already a problem, but the poor planning made it significantly worse. This word really highlights how misguided efforts, or sometimes just external events, can deepen difficult situations.
Okay, we've done 15 words now. That's a solid base. Let's push through the next set.
Halfway there. Keep going.
Some things just feel like they are absolutely going to happen. No stopping them. That's inevitable.
Certain to happen. Unavoidable.
Yeah. The source suggests technological disruption is inevitable in most industries. It feels like a massive force, almost like nature.
Inevitable is a really strong claim, isn't it? It suggests an outcome is basically guaranteed given the current trends or the forces at play.
But is anything truly inevitable?
Well, that's the philosophical question, isn't it? Predicting the future is always tricky, but the word is used powerfully to describe forces that seem so strong, so persistent, that their consequences feel almost bound to happen.
Like tech change or demographics.
Right. And thinking about what forces people perceive as inevitable can really influence how we react or how we prepare for the future, or even if we bother preparing at all.
Interesting point. Okay. From these big forces to potential rewards. Lucrative.
Money talks. Highly profitable.
Definitely. The example. E-commerce has become a lucrative sector. A word you hear all the time in business, finance, economics.
Lucrative just means something generates a lot of profit, significant financial gain. It's obviously a huge driver in business decisions, investment strategies.
What makes it lucrative?
Well, understanding that involves looking at profitability, sure, but also market size, growth potential, competitive landscape. Why is this area making so much money? That's the question it prompts.
Okay, now let's talk about how people state their views, especially in a more formal setting. Contend.
To argue or assert a position.
Yeah, argue or assert something, often in a debate or a serious discussion. Example, experts contend that regulation is needed. They're putting forward that argument strongly.
Exactly. When someone contends something, they're not just casually sharing an opinion. They are putting forward a claim, an argument, usually with the expectation that they need to back it up with reasons or evidence.
Like in academic papers.
Precisely. Academic papers, legal arguments, policy debates, you see different sides contending for their particular viewpoint or their proposed solution. It implies a level of formal argument.
And speaking of backing things up, you need to substantiate your claims.
Provide the proof. Support with evidence.
Yes. The example. The theory must be substantiated with data. This word feels absolutely fundamental for anything to be credible.
It is absolutely fundamental. In science, law, good journalism, really any field where claims need to be taken seriously, you have to be able to substantiate what you're saying.
What counts as substantiation?
Well, it depends on the field. But things like data, verifiable facts, expert testimony, documented sources, logical reasoning. These are the tools you use to substantiate a theory or a statement. It moves it from just being an assertion to being a conclusion that's actually supported, something you can build on.
Makes sense. Okay, last one for this group. A word for weakening something, often kind of slowly or subtly. Undermine.
To weaken or damage, often from below.
Yeah, weaken or damage, often in that insidious way. The example is powerful. Corruption can undermine public trust in government. It's about eroding the very foundations.
Undermine is such a great word for describing that process. Weakening something indirectly, maybe incrementally, rather than through a direct, obvious attack.
Like chipping away at it.
Exactly. Corruption doesn't usually destroy public trust in one go, does it? It erodes it, bit by bit. In the same way, constant unfair criticism can undermine someone's confidence, or lack of resources can undermine a project's success. It's a word for that gradual, often subtle weakening.
Okay, just 10 more words left on this list. We're really getting into some nuanced territory now.
Feels like it. Let's finish strong.
Okay, let's look at a slightly more formal way to bring in a contracting idea, albeit.
Albeit. Sounds a bit formal, but useful.
Yeah, it's basically a more formal way of saying, although the example. He succeeded, albeit with significant difficulties. It's concise, packs a punch, adds that important qualification.
It's a very efficient connector, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in more formal writing or speaking. It lets you smoothly add that qualification, that concession, to your main statement. You're saying, okay, this main thing is true, although this other factor was also there.
Adds complexity neatly.
Exactly.
Right.
Without needing a whole extra clause sometimes. It's neat.
Okay. And how do ideas get out there? They get disseminated.
Spread widely. Like seeds.
Yeah, to spread widely. Especially information or ideas is the example. The internet allows us to disseminate information globally. That one really hits home today, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Disseminate really captures that act of distribution, specifically for intangible things, information, knowledge, ideas, even, unfortunately, misinformation or rumors.
The way it spreads matters.
Hugely. The means of dissemination have always been critical. Think printing press, then radio and TV, and now the internet. It's completely revolutionized how quickly and how widely things can be spread. Thinking about who disseminates what and why and how that's crucial for understanding media, politics, culture, everything, really.
Okay. Sometimes, though, information or systems can be really hard to grasp, really tangled. That's when they're convoluted.
Ah, yes. Complex and difficult to follow, messy.
Yeah. The law's convoluted language confused many citizens. That example gives you that feeling of just being lost in the complexity. It's not just complex, it's twisted.
That's a good way to put it. Convoluted implies a level of complexity that actively gets in the way of understanding. It's not just intricate, it's tangled, like you said, like a knotted piece of string.
Where do we see this?
Oh, lots of places. Bureaucratic red tape, sometimes dense academic theory, definitely legal texts sometimes. Even just poorly structured arguments can feel convoluted. They become inaccessible, frustratingly complex.
Okay. Now for a word about bouncing back from tough times. Resilient.
A very positive quality, able to recover quickly.
Yeah, able to recover quickly from difficulties. The source gives that hopeful example. Children are often more resilient than adults expect. It's about toughness, adaptability.
Resilience is fundamentally about capacity. The capacity to adapt, to recover, maybe even to grow when faced with stress, adversity, major change.
Applies to more than just people, right?
Oh, absolutely. We talk about resilient communities, resilient economies, resilient ecosystems, even resilient infrastructure. What makes something resilient? Often things like flexibility, strong support systems, maybe redundancy, and definitely the ability to learn from setbacks and adapt.
Before we hit the very last few, let's talk about looking really closely at something. Scrutinize.
To examine very carefully, put it under the microscope.
Yes. Examine closely and carefully. The advice in the example is spot on. We must scrutinize the contract before signing. Essential, really.
Scrutinize suggests more than just a quick look. It implies a very close, detailed, and critical examination. You scrutinize something when the details really matter, when there could be hidden problems, or when accuracy is paramount.
Like financial reports.
Exactly. Financial records, scientific data, legal documents, important claims made by politicians or companies, they all should be scrutinized to check their validity, find errors, biases, or hidden clauses. It's all about thoroughness and paying close attention.
All right, deep breath. The final 5 words on our list. Let's bring it home.
The home stretch.
Starting with something that seems to be simply everywhere. Ubiquitous.
Present everywhere. Omnipresent almost.
Yeah. The example is so true for our times. Social media has become a ubiquitous part of daily life. You literally can't escape it sometimes.
Ubiquitous describes something that's become so common, so widespread, that you just encounter it constantly, almost in every context.
Like smartphones.
Smartphones are a perfect example. Plastic. Maybe advertising. When something achieves that level of ubiquity, it usually signals a really major shift in how we live or work or interact. Its very presence everywhere has profound effects that we often just start taking for granted.
Okay. Who are the people pushing for change, pushing for new ideas? Often, they are proponents.
The supporters, the advocates.
Right. Someone who supports an idea or a plan, the example. She is a strong proponent of clean energy reform. They're the ones championing the cause.
Proponent is the natural opposite of opponent or critic. Proponents are the active supporters. They advocate for a cause, a policy, an idea. They try to persuade others, build support, create momentum.
Understanding them is key.
Absolutely. To analyze any debate or social movement, you need to understand who the key proponents are, what arguments they're making, and what motivates them.
Okay. We talked earlier about repercussions. Now, a similar idea, but maybe suggesting more complexity, ramification.
Right. A complex, often unwelcome consequence.
Yeah, complex or unwelcome consequences, often maybe unforeseen, the example. The decision has serious legal ramifications. It suggests not just one consequence, but maybe a whole branching set of results.
That's a key difference, I think. Like repercussion, ramification points to consequences. But it often implies a wider, more tangled, sometimes negative chain of outcomes that might not have been obvious at first.
Like dominoes falling in weird directions.
Kind of, yes. A single decision can trigger legal ramifications and economic ones and social ones and political ones. They can intertwine and create whole new sets of problems or challenges down the road. It captures that sense of branching, complicated, often unwelcome results.
Okay. Penultimate word. How about just getting straight to the point? Succinct.
Brief and clear. Less is more.
Exactly. Brief and clear. The source advises, try to keep your answers succinct during the interview. Good advice. Efficiency in communication.
Being succinct is such a valuable skill, isn't it? In so many professional and academic contexts. It means conveying your message clearly and effectively, but using as few words as genuinely necessary.
Harder than it sounds sometimes.
It really is. It requires clear thinking. Beforehand, you have to prune away the extra stuff, the fluff, and focus right on the core information. Think about writing a good headline or an abstract or an executive summary. Being succinct is absolutely key.
Okay, and our final word for this deep dive. Number 30, viable.
Workable, capable of success, sustainable.
Yeah, workable, capable of success, having a realistic shot at actually functioning long term. The example puts it negatively. That strategy is not economically viable. It's about whether it can actually work in the real world.
That's a great way to frame it. While feasible asks, can we technically do this? Viable asks, can this succeed and last in practice?
So feasibility is possible, viability is workable long term.
Roughly, yes. An idea might be technically possible, feasible, but just cost way too much to be economically viable. Or a business model might be viable in one country but not another due to market conditions. It's about assessing that practical potential for sustained success and function. Is this a real workable solution or plan?
Wow. Okay, 30 words. We did it. We've covered quite a range, haven't we? From identifying problems, discrepancy, deteriorate, exacerbate.
To talking about consequences, repercussion, ramification, inevitable.
And ways to tackle issues, alleviate, mitigate, feasible, viable.
And just really precise ways to describe things: ambiguous, convoluted, ubiquitous, succinct, resilient, integral, cohesive, ostensibly.
Yeah. Going through them like this really drives home how these specific words give you powerful labels for complex ideas. They really are tools, like we said at the start, tools for thinking and communicating more effectively.
They absolutely are. I like thinking of them as higher resolution pixels for how you see and talk about the world. Instead of just blurry approximations, these words let you capture the sharp detail.
Grasp the nuances.
Exactly. Grasp nuances and arguments, analyze situations more accurately, and just articulate your own thoughts with more confidence, more authority. They really help you engage with complex issues on a more sophisticated level than everyday language often allows.
So definitely worth learning.
Definitely. So maybe here's something for you, the listener, to think about after this deep dive. Consider this. How might expanding your vocabulary, especially with precise terms like these, change not just what you can say, but maybe even how you perceive the world?
Interesting.
Does having a specific word like inadvertent make you notice accidental outcomes more clearly? Does knowing ubiquitous change how you feel about the technology that surrounds you every single day? Is there a complex issue out there that feels just slightly less daunting, slightly more graspable, now that you have a few more precise tools to name its parts? Ever felt like you have a perfect thought in your head, but when you try to say it, the words just, they fall short? You know exactly what you mean, but you're maybe missing that one precise word, that phrase that would make you sound, I don't know, truly articulate, really confident, just in everyday conversation.
Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
We tend to stick to our comfortable vocabulary, which, look, it works fine most of the time, but sometimes, yeah, to really capture a specific feeling or describe someone's personality properly or explain something complex,
Yeah.
those basic words just don't quite cut it.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we're diving into today. We got our hands on this fascinating source material. It's a list, basically, curated with 40 high-level English words, C2 level, to be exact. But here's the really interesting part. This list focuses specifically on words that are genuinely useful and, impactful in daily conversation, not just dusty academic terms you'd never actually say out loud.
Right. That's the core idea from the source, that mastering these particular words can be a kind of shortcut, a way to integrate richer vocabulary into your normal everyday chat. It's really about giving you the tools to express your thoughts more effectively. Precision, essentially.
Okay, so let's really unpack this list together then. We're going to explore these 40 words. We'll look at the definitions straight from the source, see them in action with the sample sentences provided, and we'll talk about how they can genuinely lift the way you communicate, maybe starting today. We thought maybe instead of just going 1 to 40, we could group them a bit, like words for people, words for situations, see how they connect.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And what's really valuable here, I think, is the focus on practical use. C2 vocabulary can sound a bit daunting, right? You might think of, dense textbooks or super formal speeches. But this source, it really zeroes in on words that add depth and nuance, even when you're just, chatting with friends or talking about a movie or your day. And having those definitions and sample sentences directly from the source gives us a really solid base to work from.
Agreed. So let's jump in. Maybe start with words that are fantastic for describing people, their traits, how they talk, how they interact. First one up, eloquent.
Okay, eloquent. The source defines this as fluent and persuasive in speech.
Fluent and persuasive. And the sample sentence they give is, she gave an eloquent toast at the wedding. You see how that's more than just saying she spoke well. Eloquent adds those layers, right? Flow, grace, impact. It really suggests the words were chosen beautifully and maybe moved people.
Yeah, it's got weight. Then there's a related word, but it's more about understanding others. Perceptive. Our source describes someone perceptive as quick to notice or understand.
Quick to notice or understand. The example is, he's very perceptive when it comes to people's feelings. So this isn't just someone who sees things, but someone who quickly gets the underlying stuff, the meanings, the emotions. They pick up on those subtle cues that, others might totally miss.
That's a great one for describing someone emotionally intelligent and moving from just understanding to maybe communicating insights effectively. There's astute. The source defines this as sharp, quick-witted.
Sharp, quick-witted. I like that, like in the sentence. She made an astute observation about the project. An astute comment isn't just clever, it's properly insightful. It might reveal something really important, something previously unnoticed, maybe in a complex situation. It feels sharp, intelligent.
Definitely. Now, if we're talking about honesty, directness, and communication, the list includes candid. This means honest and direct.
Honest and direct. And you might use it like this. Can I be candid with you? I didn't like the movie. Using candid there, it sort of signals, doesn't it, that you're about to be really straightforward, maybe even a bit blunt. It sets an expectation for direct honesty, which can be useful depending on the chat.
It's like giving a little warning in a good way.
Yeah.
Okay, how about someone who's clever and funny with their words? The source offers witty, meaning clever and funny.
Clever and funny. The sample sentence is spot on. He always has a witty comment ready. Witty, yeah. It combines intelligence with humor. It's about those quick, clever remarks that are amusing, but often kind of insightful too.
Right. And then there's being careful not to offend while still being direct. The word for that is tactful, defined as polite and sensitive.
Polite and sensitive, as in, she handled the situation in a very tactful way. Being tactful is all about navigating those tricky social situations with a bit of diplomacy, isn't it? Choosing your words carefully to avoid causing unnecessary upset, especially in difficult conversations. It's a really valuable skill.
Hugely valuable. Now, for someone who is confident, expressing their needs or opinions, the source gives us assertive, meaning confident and direct.
Confident and direct, the example. You need to be more assertive during meetings. Assertive is about expressing yourself clearly, confidently, standing up for your view or what you need. But this is key, doing it while still respecting other people. It's definitely different from being aggressive.
That's a crucial distinction. Okay, someone who can easily attract and influence people, they might be called charismatic. This means charming and inspiring.
Charming and inspiring. She's incredibly charismatic. Everyone listens when she talks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this describes that kind of magnetic personality, doesn't it? Someone whose presence just captures attention and respect. It's more than just being friendly. It's like they have this compelling aura.
Definitely. And finally, for this group about sort of people's fundamental nature, there's genuine, meaning real and sincere.
Real and sincere. Like when you say, he seems like a genuinely kind person. Genuine emphasizes that authenticity. A genuine person is sincere. They're not putting on a front. And using the adverb genuinely, like in the sentence, is super common.
Yeah, it really reinforces the sincerity. Okay, so that's a good set of words for describing how people communicate, perceive, and just sort of are. Shall we shift slightly, maybe to words describing their approach to tasks, challenges, life in general?
Good idea. Let's start with meticulous.
Right. The source defines this as extremely careful and detail-oriented.
Extremely careful and detail-oriented. In the example, she's meticulous when organizing her schedule. Now, this is way stronger than just saying careful, isn't it? Meticulous implies this intense focus on every single detail. A really high standard of precision, thoroughness. You'd use this for someone who leaves absolutely no stone unturned.
Totally. It's next-level carefulness. Closely related, maybe, is diligent, defined as hardworking and thorough.
Hardworking and thorough. She's a diligent worker who never misses a deadline. So diligent, it feels like it combines putting in consistent effort with that attention to detail. A diligent person works hard and makes sure the job gets done properly.
Yeah, it's about both the effort and the quality. Then, for a more practical, results-focused approach, the word is pragmatic, meaning practical, realistic.
Practical, realistic. As in, let's take a pragmatic approach to solving this. A pragmatic approach, it's grounded in reality, isn't it? It focuses on what actually works best in practice to get something done, rather than maybe sticking rigidly to theories or ideals.
Exactly. What's feasible, what gets results. Now, someone adaptable, skilled in many areas, they could be described as versatile, meaning able to do many things.
Able to do many things. She's a versatile actor, comedy, or drama. She nails it. Versatile is such a great compliment, isn't it? It highlights someone's ability to perform really well in different roles or situations or disciplines.
Very useful word. And when facing difficulty, that ability to recover, that's captured by resilient, defined as able to recover from difficulty.
Able to recover. The source gives. Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. Resilient describes that strength, that ability to bounce back from setbacks or stress or adversity. It's about overcoming tough stuff.
A really positive trait. Okay, how about how someone appears to handle things, especially stress? There's unfazed. This means not bothered or affected.
Not bothered or affected. Sample sentence. She was completely unfazed by the criticism. This is a fantastic word. It paints such a clear picture. Someone just remaining calm, steady, as if the external pressures just have no impact at all. They seem totally undisturbed.
Like water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
Then there's a slightly different shade of calmness, maybe one that's sometimes used to mask other feelings. Nonchalant, defined as calm and casual.
Calm and casual. Example. He sounded nonchalant, but I could tell he was nervous. Ah, see? Nonchalant often describes that air of casual indifference or coolness, which, like the sentence says, might not always match what's going on inside. It's more about projecting a relaxed attitude.
Yeah, it implies a certain performance, almost. And someone who keeps their emotions separate, especially in tense situations, might be called detached. The source says emotionally uninvolved.
Emotionally uninvolved. He tried to stay detached during the argument. Detached suggests that deliberate emotional distance, yeah. Not letting yourself get sort of swept up emotionally in whatever's happening.
It's interesting, isn't it, how these words let you describe not just what someone does, but how they do it, or how they seem while they're doing it.
Exactly. Instead of just saying he was calm, you could say he was unfazed, or he sounded nonchalant. And each one adds this whole different layer of meaning. Really precise.
Absolutely. Precision is the key. Okay, let's move into maybe words describing emotional or mental states. How someone's feeling inside or reacting to something.
Sounds good. First up, a common one, that feeling of mild annoyance. Irritated.
The source says slightly angry or annoyed.
Slightly angry or annoyed. I get irritated when people interrupt me. This perfectly captures that familiar feeling, right? Being slightly bothered, maybe impatient, not full-blown rage, but definitely annoyed.
We've all been there. Okay, what about nervousness about something coming up? The word is apprehensive, meaning nervous about something coming.
Nervous about something coming. I'm a bit apprehensive about my interview tomorrow. Apprehensive describes that specific kind of anxiety, doesn't it? It's tied to looking ahead, anticipating some future event, especially one that feels uncertain or significant. It's like forward-looking worry.
Yeah, it's the anticipation that gets you. Now, if someone is quietly thinking deeply, maybe a little sadly, they might be pensive, defined as quietly thoughtful.
Quietly thoughtful. He looked pensive, staring out the window. Pensive suggests that state of deep, often quite serious reflection. Someone pensive is kind of lost in thought, contemplating something with a bit of weight to it.
A very evocative word. Then there's a feeling many of us definitely know well, overwhelmed, defined as emotionally or mentally overloaded.
Emotionally or mentally overloaded. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with everything going on. Yep. This is the perfect word for that feeling of just having too much to handle. Being completely swamped by tasks or information or emotions.
Very relatable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How about when you really don't want to do something?
Yeah.
You might be reluctant. The source says unwilling or hesitant.
Unwilling or hesitant. Example. I was reluctant to say yes, but I didn't want to be rude. Reluctant captures that inner hesitation, doesn't it? That feeling of not really wanting to agree or go ahead, even if, you end up doing it anyway.
That internal conflict.
Yeah.
If someone who questions things wants evidence, they might be called skeptical. The source says doubtful.
Doubtful. I'm skeptical about that new diet trend. Skeptical implies a specific kind of doubt, though. It's more than just not believing. It's a questioning attitude, a need for proof or more information before you accept something as true. Healthy skepticism.
Indeed. Now, for a gentler kind of sadness, maybe reflective, the word is melancholy, defined as a gentle, reflective sadness.
A gentle, reflective sadness. There's a bit of melancholy in that old song. Melancholy, yeah, isn't deep despair. It's softer, often kind of wistful or thoughtful sadness, maybe even with a slightly poetic feel to it.
It's a beautiful word for a complex feeling. And unfortunately, sometimes we encounter people who, talk down to others. The word for that is condescending, defined as talking down to others.
Talking down to others. The sentence, his tone felt a bit condescending during the meeting. Oof. Condescending is such a powerful word for describing that behavior, isn't it? Behavior that makes other people feel inferior, adopting that air of superiority. It's not just rude, it's got that specific unpleasant power dynamic.
It really nails that specific type of interaction. It's striking, actually, looking back at this group, how many different shades of internal experience these words allow you to articulate.
Totally. Instead of just saying, I'm sad or I'm worried, you've got options like pensive or apprehensive to be so much more specific about how you're sad or worried.
Absolutely. And they also give you the vocabulary to describe how others seem to be feeling or behaving with, much greater accuracy.
Right. Okay, let's move on then. How about words that help us describe situations, ideas, or events, the things happening around us?
Good plan. Let's start with describing something that's not easily noticed. Subtle, meaning not obvious.
Not obvious. She gave a subtle hint that she wanted to leave. A subtle hint, yeah, it isn't direct. It's indirect, maybe easily missed unless you're really paying attention. It requires a bit of perception to pick up on it.
You have to read between the lines. Now, if something happens purely by chance, especially in a lucky way, the source offers fortuitous, meaning happening by chance in a lucky way.
Happening by chance in a lucky way. The example. Running into her at the cafe was completely fortuitous. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Fortuitous adds that element of good fortune, doesn't it? Luck involved in the chance event. It implies a positive, unexpected outcome. Like, a random meeting isn't necessarily fortuitous, but running into the exact person you really needed to see, that's fortuitous.
Precisely. It's chance plus good luck. And some things, they're just bound to happen. For that, we have inevitable, meaning certain to happen.
Certain to happen. Some mistakes are inevitable when you're learning. This word conveys that absolute certainty. If something's inevitable, there's just no avoiding it. It's a predictable, unavoidable outcome.
No way around it. Now, if an idea or maybe a fear isn't based on reason, it's irrational, defined as not based on reason.
Not based on reason, the sentence. His fear of elevators is completely irrational.
Irrational.
Describes thoughts, beliefs, or fears that just lack a logical basis. There's a disconnect from reasonable thinking.
Makes sense. When you describe something with great clarity and detail, especially like memories or imagination, you can use vivid, meaning clear and detailed.
Clear and detailed. I still have vivid memories of my childhood trips. Vivid really brings something to life in your mind, doesn't it? Makes the description or the memory feel sharp, detailed, almost like you can touch it.
Very impactful word. An idea or situation that grabs your interest because it's curious, maybe a bit mysterious. That's intriguing, defined as interesting and mysterious.
Interesting and mysterious. That's an intriguing idea. Tell me more. Intriguing definitely sparks curiosity. It makes you want to lean in, learn more, because there's some element of mystery or unexpected interest there.
Get your mind working. How about when something seems believable? Likely, even if it's not confirmed. The word is plausible. Defined as believable.
Believable. That's a plausible explanation, actually. If something is plausible, yeah, it sounds reasonable. It could potentially be true. It passes that initial test of believability, even if it's not, proven fact yet.
It could fly. On the opposite end, actions taken without thinking about the risks. Those might be reckless. The source says careless, risky.
Careless, risky. That was a reckless decision. You could have gotten hurt. Reckless implies that dangerous lack of caution, doesn't it? Making choices impulsively without really thinking through the potential negative consequences.
Definitely implies danger. Sometimes a story or an experience really resonates with you because you can identify with it. That's when it's relatable, meaning easy to identify with.
Easy to identify with. Her story is so relatable. I've been there too. This is a word we hear all the time now. If something's relatable, you see yourself or your own experiences reflected in it, it creates that connection.
Very common. Very useful. Finally, something strange or mysterious, but in a surprising way. That's uncanny. Defined as strange in a surprising way.
Strange in a surprising way. She has an uncanny ability to predict the weather. Uncanny describes something that's unusually strange or remarkable or accurate, sometimes almost feeling a bit supernatural or hard to explain.
Like, how do they do that?
Exactly. Wow. We've actually covered a lot of ground there, haven't we? Exploring how these words help describe people, their approaches, their feelings, and the situations around them.
We really have. And looking back at the list now and how we group them, you can really see how they provide these specific tools. Like you said, instead of just, that was lucky, you can say, that was fortuitous, and imply that specific kind of lucky chance.
Right.
Or instead of just, she's careful, saying she's meticulous, really emphasizes that extreme level of detail.
Exactly. This whole deep dive into the sources list, it really shows that these C2 words aren't just about sounding smart, are they? They're about being precise. They offer these ways to add color and accuracy and nuance to how you describe the world and people and your own experiences, just in normal daily conversation.
Yeah, exploring these words directly from the source list we had, it just gives you more options in your vocabulary toolbox, basically. It can definitely enhance your ability to express yourself and maybe even boost your confidence a bit when you speak.
Think about, your next conversation. Maybe you're describing a colleague or explaining some kind of mix-up or just sharing how you felt about something. These words are now available. They're on your radar to help you be more exact, more effective.
And potentially, more interesting to listen to.
Absolutely. So I guess, what does this all mean for you listening right now? Well, it means these 40 words are now hopefully on your radar too. You've heard their definitions, you've seen how they're used in those sample sentences. Maybe just try to notice them when you're reading or listening to things, or even just when you're thinking. And perhaps, just maybe, pick one or two from the list, whichever ones really resonated with you. And just try, incorporating them into your conversations this week. Start small, see how they feel.
And maybe this raises a final, important question for you to consider as you go about your week.
Think about it. How much more clearly, how much more accurately could you describe a person or a situation or even just a feeling by selecting one slightly more precise word? Maybe one from this list we just explored. What subtle shade of meaning might you currently be missing out on expressing just by sticking to the words you always use?
Ever get that feeling you might be using a word wrong, but you're too afraid to ask?
Oh, yeah.
Well, fear no more. Because today we're diving deep into 15 words that even fluent English speakers mess up. We've got a YouTube script here all about leveling up your vocabulary. And you might be surprised by some of these common mistakes.
It is fascinating, though, how some of these errors stem from subtle distinctions that are easy to miss in casual conversation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with some beginner traps. Words that seem straightforward, but can be surprisingly tricky. I'll be honest, the word literally is one I hear misused all the time.
Yep.
Just the other day, someone told me they were literally dying from how much they had to do that week.
Ah, yes. Literally seems to be a word that's been taken hostage by hyperbole.
So remind us what should literally mean. Why is it important to use it correctly?
Literally means something actually happened, exactly as stated.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the reality of a situation, not an exaggeration.
Right.
While your friend might have felt overwhelmed, they weren't literally dying.
Right.
You see, using literally correctly makes sure your words carry their intended weight. It's about precision and clarity, especially in an age where misinformation can spread so easily.
That's a really good point. The impact on communication is huge. Okay, another beginner word that trips people up is unique. I once saw a store advertising a sale on very unique items. Something about that just felt off.
That's because unique means one of a kind.
Right.
Inherently special. It stands alone.
Right.
So adding modifiers like very or quite is redundant and actually weakens the impact of the word.
So instead of saying something is very unique, how can we highlight that specialness in everyday conversation?
Let the word unique speak for itself.
Okay.
You could say, that painting is truly unique, or her style is unique. You're emphasizing the inherent specialness without needing to qualify it further.
That's so interesting. I can see how that subtle shift makes a big difference. Even these beginner words have hidden depths. You really have to think about their true meaning.
Absolutely, and that's what makes language so fascinating. Now, prepare to have some assumptions challenged, because some words have meanings completely different from what most people assume.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example of one of these words.
Let's start with irony.
Okay.
Many people confuse irony with simple coincidence or bad luck. For example, someone might say, it's so ironic that I won the lottery and then got hit by a car.
So winning the lottery and then getting hit by a car, that's just bad luck, not irony.
Yeah.
What makes a situation truly ironic?
True irony involves a situation where the outcome is the opposite of what was expected, often with a humorous or sarcastic undertone. A classic example would be a fire station burning down. It's not just about unfortunate timing, it's about a surprising reversal of expectations.
Wow, that makes so much sense. It's not just about something bad happening. It's about the unexpected nature of the situation.
You see, understanding irony helps us analyze situations more deeply. It's not just about bad luck. It's about recognizing the unexpected and sometimes absurd nature of life.
Speaking of unexpected twists,
Yeah.
let's talk about a word. Often misused in situations with high stakes. Alibis. I feel like I hear people using alibi as a synonym for any kind of excuse.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have a good alibi.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a common mistake. People might say, I didn't finish the project, but I have a good alibi.
Wait, so if it's not just any excuse, what makes a real alibi? I'm genuinely confused.
An alibi has a very specific legal meaning.
Okay.
It refers to proof that someone was somewhere else at the time a crime was committed, demonstrating their innocence. It's not just any excuse. It's evidence that clears someone of suspicion.
So using alibi to explain why you didn't finish a project wouldn't really make sense.
Exactly. Using alibi in casual conversation when you simply mean excuse can actually undermine your credibility. It shows a lack of precision in your language.
Okay, this is making me rethink how I use these words. What other intermediate words are lurking out there, ready to trip us up?
How about a word that's often confused with its near opposite? Disinterested. Many people use disinterested to mean uninterested or bored. For instance, someone might say, I was completely disinterested in that meeting.
Disinterested. If it doesn't mean bored or uninterested, then what does it actually mean?
Disinterested actually describes someone who is impartial or unbiased, free from personal stake or interest in a situation. A good example would be a judge who must remain disinterested in the outcome of a case.
Okay.
They can't be swayed by personal opinions or biases.
So if I wanted to say that I found the meeting boring, disinterested wouldn't be the right word to use.
Precisely. In that case, uninterested or bored would be more accurate.
Right.
Disinterested implies neutrality and objectivity. It's about being impartial, not uncaring.
I never realized how a single word could completely change the tone and meaning of a sentence. It's all about understanding those subtle but powerful nuances.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here to explore. Are you ready to be bemused by the next word?
Bemused. Okay, you've definitely got my attention. What's so tricky about this one?
People often think bemused means amused or entertained.
Okay.
You might hear someone say, I was bemused by his silly jokes.
So if bemused doesn't mean amused, then what's the real meaning?
Bemused actually means puzzled, bewildered, or even slightly confused. Think of it as a state of mild perplexity, for example. You might be bemused by a riddle you can't solve.
Well,
Or a strange event you don't fully understand.
so it's not about laughing at a joke. It's about that feeling of, wait, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Imagine someone watching a magic trick.
Right.
Their brow furrowed, a slight smile playing on their lips.
Yeah.
That's bemusement. It's not amusement,
Yeah.
but a fascinated perplexity.
Okay, now I'm really starting to understand the difference.
Uh-huh.
Bemused is a much richer word than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that space between amusement and confusion.
Exactly. And these subtle distinctions can make a big difference in how your message is received. Are you ready for our final intermediate word?
Bring it on. I'm ready to tackle anything.
All right. Let's explore a word that's often misused to describe something grand or impressive. Enormity. People often use enormity to emphasize the sheer size or scope of something.
Uh-huh.
You might hear someone say, I was overwhelmed by the enormity of the project.
That's how I usually use it,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a feeling it doesn't quite mean what I think it means.
Yeah.
What's the real meaning?
While enormity can relate to size, its primary meaning leans towards something more serious and weighty.
Okay.
It often refers to extreme wickedness, outrageousness, or the sheer gravity of a situation,
Right.
particularly in a moral or ethical context.
So it's less about physical size and more about the weight of the implications.
Precisely.
Hmm.
For instance, if you were discussing a horrific crime, you might speak of the enormity of the act to emphasize its moral depravity and the severity of its consequences.
Wow, that puts the word in a whole new light. It's not just about something being big, it's about something being profoundly impactful, often in a negative sense.
Exactly. It's a word that carries a lot of weight, both literally and figuratively.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already. And I'm starting to feel the enormity and the true sense of the word, of all these linguistic nuances. What's next on our journey?
Next, we'll be venturing into the realm of advanced words, where the nuances become even more intricate. Are you ready to level up your vocabulary even further?
Absolutely. I'm eager to see what other linguistic gems await us in this deep dive
Yeah.
into words.
Right.
It'd be great.
Awesome. Fasten your seatbelts, because these advanced words can be real brain twisters. They're the ones that often pop up in intellectual discussions or professional settings, and misusing them can unfortunately make you sound less credible.
Okay, I'm ready to face the advanced word challenge head on. Let's start with one that I've definitely struggled with in the past.
Decimate.
Decimate is fascinating because its common usage has drifted quite far from its original meaning. People often use it as a synonym for completely destroy, like saying the hurricane decimated the coastal towns. Yeah, I've definitely heard it used that way. But if it doesn't mean to completely destroy, then what does it actually mean?
Decimate has a very specific historical root. It comes from the ancient Roman practice of punishing mutinous troops by killing 1 out of every 10 soldiers. So the original meaning of decimate is to reduce by 1/10, not to obliterate completely.
Wow, I had no idea. That's a pretty grim origin story for a word. So using decimate to describe the total destruction of a town wouldn't be quite right.
Exactly. It's a case of hyperbole overtaking precision. While the impact of a hurricane can be devastating, it's unlikely to literally reduce a town's population by exactly 1/10.
This is why I love these deep dives. You uncover these hidden layers of meaning that we often miss in everyday conversation. It's like learning a secret code.
This word's bloody history reminds us that language carries the weight of the past. Even today, decimate suggests a severe calculated reduction, not total destruction.
Okay, what other advanced words are waiting to be decoded?
Let's tackle one that often gets misused in academic circles: peruse.
Peruse. I'll admit I've been guilty of using this one incorrectly myself. I always thought it meant to quickly skim through something.
That's a very common misconception. In reality, peruse means to read thoroughly and carefully. It implies a close and attentive examination of a text, not a hasty glance.
So if I said I perused the report before the meeting, it would mean I'd given it a very close read, not just skim the headings.
Precisely. Using peruse correctly conveys a sense of diligence and attention to detail. It suggests you've really absorbed the information.
This is another one of those aha moments. I'm realizing that using these advanced words correctly can signal a certain level of intellectual rigor. It shows you're not just skimming the surface.
Exactly. It's about choosing words that accurately reflect the depth of your engagement with the topic.
All right, bring on the next advanced word challenge. I'm feeling more and more confident with each one we tackle.
Let's see if you can crack the code on this one. Nonplussed.
Nonplussed. This one seems tricky. I've heard it used to describe someone who's calm and collected under pressure. Like, even though the presentation went wrong, she remained nonplussed.
That's a clever guess, but it's actually the opposite. Nonplussed describes a state of being surprised and confused, often to the point of speechlessness. It's that feeling of being caught off guard and unsure how to react.
Wow. So it's almost like being speechless with shock.
Exactly. Nonplussed implies a momentary loss of composure, a sense of being bewildered. It's that deer in the headlights feeling.
That makes so much more sense. I can see how misusing this word could lead to some awkward situations.
Indeed, it highlights the importance of understanding the nuances of these advanced words. They can have a big impact on how our message is perceived.
Okay, what other advanced word adventures await us? I'm ready to expand my vocabulary horizons.
Let's explore a word that often gets used in a way that diminishes its true impact. Plethora.
Plethora.
I usually think of this word as meaning a lot of something, in a positive way, like there was a plethora of fun activities to choose from at the festival. That's a common interpretation. But plethora carries a slightly different nuance. While it does mean an abundance of something, it often implies an excessive or overwhelming amount.
Okay.
It can sometimes even suggest a sense of burden or inconvenience.
Interesting. So it's not just about having a lot of something, it's about having maybe too much of it, like it's overflowing.
Precisely. Imagine a situation where you're bombarded with information or faced with an overwhelming number of choices. That sense of being inundated can be captured by the word plethora.
So if I were to say, I have a plethora of emails to respond to, it would imply that I'm feeling a bit swamped by them, not necessarily excited about having a full inbox.
Exactly. It's about that tipping point where abundance starts to feel like excess. It's about that too much of a good thing feeling.
I'm starting to see how using plethora correctly can add a layer of sophistication to my descriptions. It's a much more nuanced way of expressing abundance than just saying a lot.
It's about choosing words that convey not just the quantity, but also the impact of that quantity.
This is making me realize how much I've taken these words for granted, what other advanced words are hiding in plain sight, waiting to be understood.
Let's delve into one that's often misused in discussions about facts and information.
Factoid.
Factoid. This one seems pretty straightforward. I always thought it just meant a small or trivial fact.
That's how it's commonly used, but its original meaning is a bit more nuanced, even controversial. The term factoid was actually coined to describe something that appears to be a fact, but is actually false or unsubstantiated.
Right, really? That's a completely different meaning.
That's the risk with using factoid in its original sense. It implies a degree of skepticism or even doubt about the validity of the information being presented. It can be a way of highlighting that something may sound like a fact, but it hasn't actually been proven true.
This is a perfect example of how language can evolve and shift in meaning over time. It's important to be aware of both the common usage and the original intent behind a word. You're absolutely right. Language is a living, breathing thing that constantly adapts and changes. Our goal is to be aware of those changes and use words in a way that is both accurate and effective.
So how can we use factoid in a way that doesn't accidentally spread misinformation?
If you're unsure of the accuracy of a piece of information, it's best to avoid using factoid altogether. You could say something like, here's an interesting tidbit, or this might be a bit of trivia, but this avoids any implication that the information might be false.
That's really helpful advice. Okay, bring on the next advanced word. I'm ready to conquer some more linguistic complexities.
Let's tackle a word that often causes confusion in discussions and debates. Moot.
Moot? I've always thought of this word as meaning irrelevant or pointless. Like that argument is moot because the decision has already been made.
That's a common understanding, but it's not entirely accurate. While moot can relate to something that's no longer relevant, its original meaning is a bit more nuanced. It originally referred to a matter that is open for debate or discussion.
So if a topic is moot, it's not necessarily pointless. It just means there's room for further discussion or consideration.
Precisely. Imagine a legal case where the circumstances change, making the original point of contention no longer relevant to the outcome. The issue might be considered moot, not because it was unimportant, but because it's no longer central to the case.
That's a really helpful clarification. So it's less about the topic being irrelevant and more about its significance having shifted or diminished.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that the context has changed, and the original point of debate may no longer be the primary focus.
I'm definitely feeling more enlightened than moot after tackling that one. What other advanced word adventures await us?
Let's wrap up our exploration of advanced words with a pair that often trips people up: infer and imply.
Ah, Infer and imply, the classic conundrum. I know these words are related to drawing conclusions, but I often mix them up.
It's a common confusion. The key difference lies in who is doing the action. The speaker or writer implies something, meaning they suggest or hint at something without stating it directly. The listener or reader infers something, meaning they draw a conclusion based on what is implied.
So if I were to say, it's getting late, I might be implying that it's time to go, even though I haven't explicitly said so.
Exactly. And if you, as the listener, understood my implication, you would have correctly inferred my meaning.
I see. So it's a two-way street. The speaker sends out a subtle signal, and the listener picks up on that signal and draws a conclusion.
Precisely. It's like a subtle dance of communication where meaning is conveyed through suggestion and interpretation.
This distinction is so subtle, but it's crucial for clear communication. Misusing these words can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings.
Absolutely. Mastering the difference between infer and imply is essential for navigating conversations and interpreting written texts accurately. It's about understanding both sides of the communication equation.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's amazing how much depth and complexity there is to these seemingly simple words.
And we've only just scratched the surface. But I hope you're starting to see how understanding the nuances of language can empower you to communicate with greater clarity and precision.
I'm definitely feeling a lot more confident about using these words correctly. It's like a whole new world of linguistic possibilities has opened up.
And that's the beauty of language learning. It's an ongoing journey of discovery and refinement. Are you ready for a quick challenge to test your newfound knowledge?
Absolutely. Bring it on. All right. Hit me with that word challenge. I'm ready to put my knowledge to the test.
Okay. Let's see if you can recall the true meaning of nonplussed. Without looking back at our discussion, take a moment to think about it.
Okay. No peeking. I think I've got it. Nonplussed means to be surprised and confused, almost to the point of speechlessness. It's like that feeling of being completely thrown off guard and not knowing how to react.
That's absolutely correct. You've successfully decoded nonplussed. It seems our deep dive has truly expanded your vocabulary horizons.
I'm feeling pretty proud of myself right now. This whole experience has been eye-opening. I've realized that using words correctly isn't just about sounding smart. It's about communicating effectively and ensuring that my message is understood.
It's about wielding the power of language with precision and care. Choosing words that accurately reflect not only what we want to say, but also the subtle nuances of meaning we wish to convey.
You know, it's funny because I used to think that vocabulary was just about memorizing definitions. But this deep dive has shown me that it's so much more than that. It's about understanding the history, the etymology, the subtle shades of meaning that make each word unique.
It's about recognizing that words are not static, but dynamic. They evolve over time, their meanings shifting and adapting to reflect the changing world around us.
And that's what makes language so fascinating. It's a living, breathing entity that connects us to the past, informs our present, and shapes our future.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to continue exploring the fascinating world of language. Pay attention to the words you use, the words you encounter, and the way they impact your understanding of the world.
I know I will. This has been such a rewarding journey. I'm walking away with a newfound appreciation for the power of words and the importance of using them correctly.
Remember, language is a gift, a tool that allows us to connect, create, and inspire. Let's use it wisely.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Happy wordsmithing. Okay, so let's be real for a sec. Small talk, right? It can be like the most awkward thing ever. Like when you're stuck in a situation and you know you should be chatting, but your mind just goes blank. Anyone else? Feel me on that. But get this. What if I told you that this deep dive could actually turn that dread into pure confidence? And we're going to do it using a source you'd never expect. A video script, get this, for people learning English.
I know, right? Sounds a little out there. But seriously, this script is full of stuff that goes way deeper than just language. It's like a secret masterclass in how humans connect, hidden inside an English lesson.
Okay, I gotta admit, when you first mentioned this source, I was kind of like, how can something for total beginners help someone who's already fluent?
That's fair, totally. But the cool thing here is, by breaking small talk down into these simple steps, it actually shows you the psychology behind how we connect. Like, it's a cheat sheet for building rapport, even if you never needed help with English in the first place.
So it's more about understanding the, deeper game, not just memorizing lines.
Exactly. For example, the script makes a big deal about greetings and weather talk, stuff we might think is just filler.
Yeah, I always thought that stuff was kind of pointless.
Right. But they actually serve a super important purpose. Like, humans are literally wired to bond over shared experiences.
Hmm. Okay.
Even something as simple as complaining about the heat or, whatever the weather's doing,
Okay, yeah, I guess I can see that.
it creates that instant common ground, that we're in this together feeling, which is huge for starting any kind of connection.
Wow, that's actually so true. I never thought about it that way.
And the script goes even further. Instead of those boring old greetings like, "Hi, how are you?" it gives you phrases that fit the specific situation so you get a better response.
Oh, I like where this is going. Give me an example.
So say you're at a party. Instead of that robotic, "Hi, how are you?" try something like, "What brings you here?"
Way more interesting, right?
Way more. It's like you're actually interested, not just saying words. Exactly. It shows you're paying attention and they actually get to share something about themselves. It's what they call a strong bid in, like conversation analysis stuff. Each thing we say is a bid to connect.
Ooh, I'm digging this bidding concept. So we're all just out here trying to make the strongest bid to connect.
Totally. And this script is giving us all the winning moves. Another one they have is instead of just saying nice weather, you could say something like, "This weather's crazy, right?"
It's like inviting the other person in on the joke. I like it.
Yeah.
So it's making small talk feel, I don't know, less robotic. But what really stood out to me was the role-playing part.
Ah, yes. That's where the magic really happens. The people who made this script, they get it. Knowing the right words isn't enough. You got to actually practice using them. And role-playing is the best way to do that.
But what if you don't have someone to practice with? Isn't that kind of, I don't know, weird to do alone?
For sure. But you can totally do it in your head. It's called mental rehearsal. Basically, you just picture yourself in different situations.
Hold on. So you're saying by just imagining myself rocking these small talk moments, I'm actually getting better at it in real life?
You got it. Might sound a little strange, but neuroscientists have found that when you rehearse something mentally, your brain fires up the same way it does when you're actually doing the thing.
No way. That's so cool. It's like training your brain for social situations, like a cheat code for confidence. I'm already feeling less terrified about networking events or, just parties in general.
It's crazy, right? How powerful our brains are. Like, this script really shows you how to use that power to, level up your social skills.
I like that, level up. So we've talked about greetings, weather talk, even practicing in your head. What else does this script have up its sleeve?
Okay, so one thing that really impressed me was the questions. They go way beyond those typical boring questions like, "Where are you from?" or "What do you do?" The usual suspects.
Yeah, those can be so snooze fest sometimes.
Right. Instead, they give you all these questions that are actually interesting, designed to, spark real conversations.
Okay, I'm all about those real conversations. Tell me more. Give me the good stuff.
So instead of asking, "What do you do?" which can feel kind of like a job interview, they suggest asking, "What do you like to do for fun?"
I mean, that's a classic for a reason, right? It gets people talking about what they're actually passionate about.
Exactly. It's like you're inviting them to show you their real selves, not just their, LinkedIn profile. And if you really want to go deeper, you could try something like, "What's the most interesting thing you've done lately?"
Ooh, I like that one. It's like a sneak peek into their adventures. You might even discover you have some cool stuff in common.
Totally. Plus, it shows you're actually curious about them, not just trying to fill the silence. And they even have specific questions for different situations. Like, if you're at a dinner party, you could ask, "Have you tried any good restaurants lately?"
Perfect. Everyone loves talking about food. Instant conversation starter, right there.
It's true. It's something we can all relate to, like enjoying a good meal. Okay, so we've covered greetings, weather talk, asking interesting questions, even mental rehearsal. But what about when you're ready to, make your escape? Does this script help with that too?
Yeah, like how do you end a conversation without being rude?
Don't worry, they got you covered. They have a bunch of different closing phrases depending on the situation. From a simple, "It was nice talking to you," to something more like, "Hey, we should grab coffee sometime."
Oh, I love that they include those follow-up suggestions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really do click with someone, and it's good to have a way to, keep things going.
Exactly. It shows you're confident and interested, which is always a good look. And even if they can't meet up, it still leaves a good impression. They'll remember you as someone who actually wanted to connect.
Yeah, it's like planting a seed, right? You never know where those initial conversations might lead. What about those times when you just need a quick, casual exit, though, like you're running late or something?
No problem. They have those too. They suggest things like "catch you later" or "have a great day." Those are perfect for keeping it light and friendly without feeling like you have to hang around forever.
Okay, so whether you're aiming for a lifelong friendship or just a quick chat, it sounds like this script has given us a whole toolbox for navigating the social world.
Yeah, it's like they took all the guesswork out of small talk and gave us a clear path to follow. It's pretty amazing.
And what's so cool is that this script, even though it's for people learning English, it actually shows us some really deep things about human connections, like a reminder that we all want to feel understood, even in those little everyday conversations.
So true. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. We're not just learning phrases, we're learning about what makes us human and how even a short conversation can make a difference, like create a ripple effect.
It's like we're seeing the world through a whole new lens now, right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the best part, putting it all into practice. We've talked about a lot today, the different phases of small talk, how to make a bid for connection, even practicing in your head. But now it's your turn, dear listener. Take these ideas and make them your own.
Yes. This is where the real transformation happens. We've given you the tools. Now it's up to you to use them. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. The goal isn't to become some kind of small talk robot.
Exactly. Be yourself, be genuine, and use these techniques to connect with people in a real way. So let's recap the top 3 things we've learned from this unexpected deep dive into, well, mastering small talk. First, small talk isn't just random. There's a structure you can follow to make those conversations flow.
Second, the words you use actually matter. This script has given us tons of phrases that are interesting, thoughtful, and perfect for different situations.
And third, practice, practice, practice. Whether you're practicing in your head or even role-playing with a friend, the more you do it, the more confident and natural you'll become.
It really is like freeing, right?
Yeah.
Knowing you have these tools, it takes away that fear of like messing up or saying the wrong thing.
For sure. It's like having this, I don't know, secret weapon for social situations. And honestly, the biggest thing I'm taking away from this is small talk doesn't have to be something you dread. It can actually be like fun, a way to connect with people, you know?
100%. What about you? What's sticking with you from all this? What did you find most helpful from looking at this script?
You know, it's funny. I think what resonated most was realizing that everyone, even people who seem super outgoing, they've probably felt that awkwardness too. This script shows that small talk is a skill, like something you can learn and get better at, just like anything else.
Right. It's not like some people are born knowing how to do it and others aren't.
Exactly. It takes so much pressure off. You can just approach those conversations with curiosity, like a little game. Just see what happens.
I love that. A little game. It really can be like an adventure,
Yeah.
discovering something new about someone, even if it's just a tiny thing.
And it reminds you that even those small moments, a quick chat, a smile, they can all make a difference. It's like we're all connected in this big web, and every conversation adds to that, you know?
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, well, the surprisingly interesting world of small talk, I want to leave you with this. Think about the next time you are in a situation where you know there's going to be some small talk. Maybe it's a party or a work event, even just grabbing coffee. What are you most excited to try out from all the stuff we talked about?
Such a good question.
Yeah.
And hey, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Just be yourself, be genuine, and see what happens. You might be surprised how fun and even meaningful those small conversations can be. So go out there and conquer the world of small talk. We believe in you.
Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we're going to be exploring, well, actually, your English learning journey using a script for a video for English language learners. It's going to be like a deep dive within a deep dive, really. So no matter where you're at, beginner, advanced, somewhere in between, there should be something here for you.
Yeah, I think it's so cool how this script uses like real stories from other people learning English, you know,
Yeah.
to like inspire. It's like we're all on this journey together, you know?
Totally. And speaking of journeys, the script like starts off by asking this big question, right? What made you want to learn English in the first place? The why behind your adventure, basically. They give this example of a learner, Anna, and her goal was she just wanted to watch TV, like without subtitles. And what I thought was so cool about that was like, it was totally, you know, coming from her, like she just wanted to do it, not because someone told her she had to or anything.
Right.
Like those are the best reasons, you know,
Right.
when it comes from inside.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing your why can really make a difference, I think, especially when things get tough, you know? When you hit a wall or you just don't feel like studying, it's like having a compass to keep you, you know, heading in the right direction.
I love that, the compass. So I'm curious, what was your why, you know, when you started out? Take a second to think about that. It's worth, you know, revisiting it as you keep going too. Now, the script also digs into how, like, where you are can affect your learning. It gets that not everyone can be like surrounded by English speakers all the time, but it kind of challenges us to get creative.
Yeah, yeah. This story about Raj really stuck with me. He lives in this village where literally no one speaks English. And so he basically turned his whole house into this like learning tool, sticky notes everywhere, using English for like everyday stuff. It just proves you don't have to be in some English-speaking country to learn it well.
It's amazing, right? Talk about resourcefulness. He didn't wait for the perfect situation. He just made it himself. And this actually leads perfectly into what the script talks about next. How to, take all that time we waste and turn it into learning time.
Oh, yeah, like when you're scrolling on your phone or whatever, and it's not even like fun anymore.
Exactly. But imagine if you could use that time to learn instead. The script mentions Maria, and she would spend like 30 minutes every night on, I think it was TikTok, and she swapped that for English learning videos, and guess what? In just a couple of weeks, her vocabulary like exploded.
Wow.
See? Totally doable. And what's even cooler is you can do this throughout your day, right? Like when you're commuting, waiting in line, even just doing chores. You can listen to podcasts, use apps, just sneak in little bits of English here and there.
Yeah. Just make it a part of your life, The more you can do that, the more natural it all feels.
Exactly. The script then kind of switches gears and talks about common mistakes that can, slow you down. And this is where I think your expertise is going to be so helpful. One of the first things it mentions is like getting too hung up on grammar, to the point where you're not even really speaking. It's easy to just memorize all the rules, but language is really about talking to people, right?
Absolutely. Grammar's important. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes I think it gets too much focus, like it's more important to be able to speak fluently and confidently, even if you mess up a little. It's about finding that balance, I think. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with that. You could know all the grammar in the world, but if you can't have a conversation, what's the point, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like you learn how to play an instrument, but then you never actually play any music.
Exactly. You just practice scales all day long. Okay, so the script's next point, I think this is something we've all dealt with, being scared to make mistakes. I mean, every language learner goes through that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I think it's so important to, like, change how we think about mistakes. They're not like failures. They're actually like feedback.
Yeah.
Each mistake is a chance to learn and get better.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It takes the pressure off, And this kind of leads into the third mistake they talk about in the script, which is not practicing regularly. We've all been there, right? Like crazy study sessions and then nothing for weeks.
Yeah, I've totally been there. It's always better to do a little bit every day than a lot all at once.
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't go to the gym once a month for 8 hours and expect to see results. You got to be consistent.
So true. Short, consistent workouts, that's the key. Like the script mentions this learner who went from like these huge study sessions every now and then to just doing 30 minutes a day every day. And they saw way more progress.
It's amazing, right? How much difference just a little bit each day can make.
Yeah.
Our brains, they actually learn better that way too, through repetition and like slow exposure, not cramming.
So instead of trying to do it all at once, just find little ways to fit English into your day, right?
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and look at what the script says about, learning English if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
Which can feel like a huge obstacle, but the script has some pretty encouraging examples.
Yeah, I was really interested in that part.
It comes back to what we were saying before about creating that immersive environment, even without actually being around English speakers. And technology can really help with this, right?
Totally.
Like apps for language exchange, online forums, even streaming services with subtitles.
There's so much out there.
Right. Like in the script, they talk about Marco from Spain, and he basically made like his own little English world at home, reading news in English, watching English YouTubers, even talking to friends online from other countries.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's like bringing the English-speaking world to you.
You don't even have to get on a plane.
Exactly. Which leads perfectly into the script's like final challenge, focus on output.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just understand English. You got to use it, by speaking or writing.
Yeah, that's where the real learning happens, I think. Getting out there and actually using the language. I know it can be scary at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets.
The script suggests a few things you can try, like recording yourself speaking and then listening back to see what you can improve.
Well, that's a good one. Yeah.
Or joining a speaking group, or even just writing like a short paragraph in English every day.
I like that.
Just little things to get you practicing,
The key is to find what works for you and then make it a habit. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Even 5 minutes a day can make a difference in the long run.
And as we start wrapping up this deep dive here, I think one of the most important things to remember is learning English, it's a journey, right? And every little thing you do, it brings you closer to your goals.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. I mean, we've talked about so much, right? Like from that whole why thing to making your own little English world. But what really sticks out to me is how much the script is all about, like, doing stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally. You can't just sit there and, like, hope you'll learn English.
Right. You got to get out there and use it. And remember how we talked about making mistakes? The script wants us to think about those differently, too.
Yeah. They're not like the end of the world.
They're actually how you get better.
Like little stepping stones.
I love that. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive into learning English, I have one question for you. And it kind of goes back to that output thing we were talking about. What's one small step you're going to take this week to actually use your English?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Could be anything, really. Record yourself talking for a minute, write an email in English, even just chat with someone online.
It doesn't have to be this big, huge thing.
Exactly. Just something small but consistent.
Like we were saying before, 5 minutes a day. It all adds up.
We've explored a ton of tips today and heard some pretty inspiring stories. I bet there are a few that really resonated with you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So think about those and how you can use them in your own learning. And remember, learning English, it should be fun, not a chore.
Totally. It's an adventure.
Embrace those challenges, you know, celebrate how far you've come and never stop exploring. Happy learning, everyone.